On October 19, 2024, a group of Israeli hikers on the Himalayas Annapurna circuit were thrust into an unimaginable nightmare. What began as a trek through one of the world's most beautiful mountain ranges of Himalaya quickly turned into a fight for survival after tragedy struck. A massive boulder fell from the cliffs above, striking Dr. Asaf Ben Barak, a 71-year-old hiker and leader of the group, leaving the hikers to battle not just the elements but the crushing weight of loss. A journey that went from adventure to tragedy, and how a group of friends and strangers became a family bound by grief, resilience, and determination. This is their story. Day 1, October 15th, 2024. The journey begins. It was a crisp morning at Ben Gurion Airport, Israel, and the air was filled with excitement as a group of Israeli hikers gathered for what was supposed to be adventure of a lifetime. Among them was Dr. Asaf Ben Barak, a 71-year-old ophthalmologist known for his extensive trekking experience and his love for the outdoors. Along with him were a group of fellow trekkers, all eager to conquer the world-renowned Himalayas Annapurna circuit in Nepal. For them, this was a dream trek, an opportunity to push themselves physically and bond with nature. After a long flight, the group arrived in Kathmandu, Nepal, where they spent the day gathering supplies and getting ready for the trek. Asaf, with his wealth of experience, took the lead, ensuring that everyone was well prepared. The evening was spent enjoying traditional Nepali food and soaking in the vibrant culture of the city. Spirits were high, and everyone was eager for the adventure that lay ahead. Day 2, October 16th, 2024. A new beginning. The following morning, the group set out for Besi Sahar, the gateway to the Annapurna circuit. They arrived by 10 a.m., ready to begin the trek. As they made their way through the lush green valleys and villages, the majestic Annapurna peaks started to reveal themselves in the distance. The air was fresh, and the mood was light as they trekked through the breathtaking landscape. By 4 p.m., they reached their first campsite by the river, where they set up their tents and shared stories around the campfire. Dr. Asaf, ever the storyteller, kept everyone entertained with tales from his previous treks. They laughed, bonded, and took in the beauty of the surroundings, unaware that their journey was about to take an unexpected turn. Day 3, October 17th, 2024. The first challenges. The next morning, the group woke up early, eager to push on. By 7 a.m., they were back on the trail, trekking along steep paths and rocky terrain. Higher they climbed, the more stunning the views became. By noon, they reached a viewpoint that offered a panoramic view of the Annapurna range. The group stopped for lunch, taking in the beauty of the snow-capped peaks around them. But as the day progressed, the weather began to change. By 3 p.m., dark clouds rolled in, and the group knew they had to find shelter. They set up a camp just in time before the rain began to pour. The storm was fierce, and the hikers huddled in their tents, exchanging stories to pass the time. Despite the weather, their spirits remained high, and they were determined to continue the next day. Day 4, October 18th, 2024. A sudden storm. The rain continued through the night, and by the morning, the group was soaked, but still determined to press on. At 6:30 a.m., they packed their gear and set off once again. The trail was slippery from the rain, and the terrain was increasingly challenging. By 12 p.m., they reached a ridge overlooking Tilico Lake, and the group paused to take in the stunning view. However, the weather was worsening rapidly. By 3 p.m., a thick fog rolled in, making visibility nearly impossible. The hikers rushed to set up camp once again, hoping the storm would pass quickly. But as the wind picked up and the rain turned to snow, it became clear that the storm would last for a while. Still, no one anticipated what was about to happen. Day 5, October 19th, 2024. Tragedy strikes. It was early in the morning on October 19th when disaster struck. The group set out at 7 a.m., continuing on their ascent towards Tilico Peak. The weather was harsh, but they were used to tough conditions. Asaf led the way, guiding his fellow trekkers up the steep, rocky terrain. But around 9 a.m., the unimaginable happened. Without warning, a massive boulder came crashing down the mountainside. The loud rumble of rocks tumbling down echoed through the air, and before anyone could react, the boulder struck Dr. Asaf directly. The group rushed to his side in shock and disbelief, but it was clear that he was severely injured. He was unconscious, and the situation was dire. Immediate aftermath, 9:15 a.m. on the same day. Dr. Asaf's fellow trekkers, many of whom were seasoned hikers themselves, quickly sprang into action. A paramedic in the group began performing first aid, while others used satellite phones to call for help. Panic set in as they realized how severe the situation was. Dr. Asaf was no longer the man who had led them with his unshakable confidence. He was now in need of urgent medical attention. The hikers knew they had to move quickly. They needed a helicopter, and they needed it now. Rescue efforts, 10 a.m. By 10:30 a.m., the local authorities had dispatched a helicopter to the site. The group huddled around Dr. Asaf, trying to keep him stable and comforted as best as they could while waiting for the rescue team to arrive. The helicopter, which had to navigate through treacherous mountain terrain, finally arrived around 1 p.m. The rescue team carefully loaded Dr. Asaf onto a stretcher and airlifted him to the nearest hospital. The hikers were left standing in the middle of the vast mountains, shaken and exhausted, but determined to continue. They packed up their gear and began the long descent back to the base camp. Though their friend was on his way to safety, the emotional weight of the moment was heavy. They had witnessed their leader fall, and they knew they could never return to the carefree spirit they had started with. Day 6, October 20th, 2024, a devastating loss. That evening, the group received the news that shattered their hearts. Asaf had passed away during surgery. Despite all efforts, the injuries were too severe. The hikers were overcome with grief. It was one thing to face dangers of the Annapurna range, but to lose someone they trusted and admired was a different kind of blow. They gathered around, holding a quiet memorial service at the base camp. Candles were lit, and flowers were laid out as each person shared memories of Asaf. His laughter, wisdom, and sense of adventure would be sorely missed. Day 7, October 21, 2024. Honoring Dr. Asaf's legacy. The next morning, the group made a very crucial decision. They would continue the trek, not just for themselves, but in honor of Dr. Asaf. They set off early, and each step taken with the memory of their fallen leader in mind. The landscape, which had once been filled with excitement, now felt heavy with sadness. By 12 p.m., the group arrived at a scenic overlook where they stopped for a break. The silence was palpable as they reflected on their journey. It wasn't just about reaching the summit anymore. It was about honoring Asaf's memory. Day 8, October 22, 2024. The group made their final push to Thorongla Pass, the highest point of the Himalayas Annapurna circuit. At 9 a.m., they stood at the summit, overwhelmed with emotion. They embraced each other, feeling both the loss of their friend and triumph of completing their journey. At that moment, Asaf was there with them. His spirit carried on in their hearts. Day 9, October 23rd, 2024. Descent and reflection. The descent was, as usual, long and difficult, but the hikers found comfort in one another. They shared stories of Dr. Asaf and reflected on what he had meant to each of them. By 3 p.m., they reached a mountain hut where they rested for the night, exhausted, but at peace with what they had accomplished. Day 10, October 24, 2024. Returning to Kathmandu. The group made their way back to Kathmandu, their journey at an end. They arrived in the city by 5 p.m. and checked into a hotel. The next day, they held a final gathering to reflect on their journey and remember Dr. Asaf. They knew the trek had changed them, and they would carry the lessons learned and the memories of their friend with them forever. Day 11, October 25, 2024. Homeward bound. The group boarded their flight back to Israel, their hearts heavy but proud. They had faced the unimaginable and come through stronger on the other side. Though the loss of their friend Asaf would never leave them, but they knew that his legacy would live on in the stories they would share and the lessons they would pass on. Day 12, October 26, 2024. A new beginning. Back in Israel, the hikers came together for one final tribute to their fallen friend. They established a scholarship in Asaf's name, ensuring that his spirit of adventure and giving would continue to inspire others. They had come for an adventure, but they left with something far more important: a deep understanding of the fragility of life and the strength of the human spirit. This story is one of tragedy, resilience, and the power of friendship. The hikers, forever bonded by the journey they shared, learned that sometimes the greatest adventures come with the harshest challenges, and that true strength is found not just in reaching the summit, but in how you carry each other through the darkest moments. Please do subscribe to the channel Cliffhanger. Until next time.